0. What you're about to witness changed women's tennis in a way nobody could have predicted. It wasn't simply because a 21-year-old stunned the world, or because an upset that seemed almost impossible actually happened, but because of everything that came along with it. Thousands of voices filled the air, Philippine flags stretched across the stands, and an entire nation watched from the other side of the world. This was far bigger than a tennis match. This was the beginning of a movement, and Cincinnati, Ohio would never feel quite the same again. Alex had just stepped onto the $7.4 million Cincinnati WTA 1000 stage and completely turned it upside down. The Lindner Family Tennis Center became almost unrecognizable as Filipino supporters filled section after section, flags hanging from railings while chants echoed throughout the venue. The noise simply would not stop, and the atmosphere was unlike anything this tournament had experienced before. At the heart of all that excitement was a young woman from Manila, seeded 17th and competing in her very first Cincinnati main draw, taking apart Elena Gabriela Ruse in straight sets as though the pressure didn't exist. Almost nobody saw this result coming, but maybe they should have. To understand what really happened inside that stadium, we have to rewind a few weeks, because Eala didn't arrive in Cincinnati by chance. She arrived there as a champion. She had just captured the first WTA title of her career in Washington, where she defeated world number 3 Jessica Pegula in the final. That victory pushed Eala's winning streak to 7 straight matches. She then went deep in Toronto, advancing to the round of 16 before a difficult defeat against Belinda Bencic finally brought that run to an end. After months of non-stop competition across the North American swing, she finally gave herself permission to breathe. "I definitely will take maybe 2 days off," she joked after Toronto. "I need to get a haircut. I haven't gotten a haircut in a while. My nails are grown out, so yeah, I'll do a couple things just to get my mind off tennis." That brief reset was all she needed, because once she arrived in Ohio, she was ready. Cincinnati was already waiting for her. The Filipino community throughout Ohio didn't simply attend, they turned up in force. While Cincinnati itself has roughly 1,000 to 2,000 Filipino Americans, the wider Ohio population reaches nearly 17,000. Supporters drove for hours to pack the stands. Even before Eala had hit her first competitive ball, people were already surrounding the practice courts, proudly waving Philippine flags. The entire stadium carried an energy that felt less like a sporting event and more like a homecoming. Barangay Cincinnati had officially opened its doors, and for Eala, walking into that environment meant much more than simply having another crowd behind her. "It's an amazing experience," she said. "It's nice to see that the Filipino community is really showing up and enjoying tennis." She talked about how she wanted that support to help expand the sport, giving people something different, something exciting, and something they could genuinely connect with. She was giving them all of that and then some. But underneath the celebration, there was still a match that had to be won, and her opponent was certainly not there to make things easy. Elena Gabriela Ruse already had history with Eala, and it wasn't exactly favourable. Their only previous encounter came during the 2024 US Open qualifying rounds, where the experienced Romanian survived Eala in a grueling 3-set battle. Ruse was seasoned, composed, and dangerous. She knew how to stretch rallies until her opponent became uncomfortable, break their rhythm, and force a rising player to question herself when the pressure became greatest. She had also just defeated a veteran in the opening round and entered the second round full of confidence. Eala knew exactly what she was stepping into. "They can maybe relax a bit," she told the crowd with a smile, "because they will see me on court very soon." It sounded playful and confident, but beneath that smile was someone who fully understood the challenge ahead. Ruse wasn't walking onto the court simply hoping to put up a good fight. She was there to win. What she hadn't fully accounted for was just how much Eala had developed. The player who entered that Cincinnati court was nothing like the one who had fought through qualifying 12 months earlier. This was now a WTA champion, a top 20 player, and a competitor who had already faced world-class opponents under enormous pressure and learned how to come through those moments stronger. That difference could be seen from the very beginning. Ruse started aggressively, held serve early, and immediately went after Eala's backhand. The opening games were careful and calculated, with both players studying one another, searching for weaknesses, and refusing to give anything away. But as the rallies became longer and the crowd became louder, Eala started finding a dangerous rhythm. It arrived in the 4th game. First came a powerful forehand down the line, followed by a perfectly placed cross-court backhand. Suddenly, Ruse was being pushed around the court. Then the break arrived. Eala's fist pump sent the crowd into another level of excitement. The momentum had shifted, and it wasn't coming back. For the rest of the opening set, the match became a battle of patience from the baseline. Neither player was willing to give away cheap points, and both fought through long, exhausting exchanges. But Eala's efficiency gradually began to separate her. She landed close to 70% of her first serves and won more than 71% of those points, staying calm even when rallies continued for what felt like forever. When another break chance appeared, she didn't hesitate. She took it, protected her advantage, and finished the first set 6-3. Ruse refused to disappear. The second set became tighter, harder, and more physical. The Romanian raised her level, her serve became more forceful, and her returns came back with greater pace. Suddenly, Eala was down 4-5, with the possibility of a deciding set hanging over the match. This was the moment when everything could have changed. Instead of rushing or forcing the issue, Eala trusted her game. She relied on depth, patience, smart court positioning, and constant movement. Even when her first serve wasn't working perfectly, she still won an impressive 76% of her second serve points. Shutting down the pressure Ruse was trying to create and refusing to give her even one easy opportunity. She held serve, and the tiebreak arrived. With the crowd standing, Eala walked to the baseline, took a breath, and then took control. Her composure during that tiebreak was remarkable. She attacked Ruse's second serve right away, controlled the rally from the opening shot, and raced to a 7-2 finish before the Romanian could respond. The final score was 6-3, 7-6. The tiebreak was 7-2, and the match lasted 1 hour and 48 minutes. It was clean, controlled, and dominant. She had done it, and what happened afterward was somehow even louder than the match itself. As Eala walked away from the court, the Lindner Family Tennis Centre exploded with a roar that felt strangely familiar, because it was the same kind of sound that had filled Toronto's SoBi Stadium and the William H.G. Fitzgerald Tennis Centre in Washington. That roar had become the defining sound of her summer. Everywhere she competed, a community appeared. Everywhere she went, strangers started feeling like family. Philippine flags covered the railings, fans arrived wearing custom Eala jerseys, and children held handmade signs saying, "Fight, believe, represent." Chants of "Let's go, Alex" continued rolling through the stands even after the final point was long gone. The tennis world was taking notice. Coco Gauff, the world number 4 and reigning US Open champion, openly discussed what Eala was bringing to the sport. "I like that Alex brings a whole new demographic to the WTA Tour," Gauff said. "I think what she's doing for tennis is great. She's a great role model for people to look up to." Jessica Pegula, the world number 3 who had lost to Eala in the Washington final, also had a message for the Filipino supporters filling venues throughout North America. "You guys are helping grow tennis around the world," she said. For women competing in tennis, she added, that kind of growth was something they loved seeing, and in Cincinnati, it was impossible to ignore. The fans didn't disappear after the final point. The flag stayed raised, and the stadium remained filled with colour and noise long after the match was over. When Eala stepped up to the microphone for her post-match interview, she looked toward the crowd and shared what she had been feeling all week. "Thank you, all of you. I see you guys every week. I see how much you love your fellow Filipinos. That's why I'm so proud to be Filipino." The Eala effect was never simply about putting more people into tennis arenas. It was about changing what those arenas felt like, turning tournaments into spaces filled with culture, identity, pride, and belonging. Cincinnati had now become the latest city to experience it. But while the celebration was still echoing through the stands, a much bigger question was already taking shape. What happens when she reaches New York? Cincinnati was never supposed to be the final destination. It was the last major rehearsal. The US Open runs from August 30 through September 13 at Flushing Meadows. Last year, Eala became the first Filipino player in the Open era to win a Grand Slam main draw match. This time, she arrives as something completely different. She is a WTA champion, a top 20 ranked player, and one of the most closely watched young athletes in women's tennis. The pressure on her back is bigger, but so is everything else around her. Her mindset, however, hasn't changed. "I don't have a specific round in the US Open that I say I need to reach," she explained. "The way I approach tournaments is match by match, round by round. That patience isn't a sign of fear, it is the foundation of everything she has built." Philippine Tennis Executive Director Tessa Mendoza understands that recovery will be one of the biggest factors heading into Flushing Meadows. The North American swing has been physically demanding, with Washington, Toronto, and Cincinnati coming one after another. Managing that workload before the Grand Slam could be just as important as anything Eala does during practice. But here's what makes Alex Eala different now. She is no longer walking on to the biggest stages, hoping someone will give her permission to belong. She is arriving knowing that she already does. And when she steps onto the court at Flushing Meadows, an entire nation will be stepping out there with her.